This is Stephen Byer from UNEARTHED Films.
This is Eric Stanzi.
This is Fred Vogel.
This is Krandamit Stake.
This is Philip Goergens, director of 29 Needles, and you are experiencing Sadistic Cinema.
Sadistic Cinema.
Sadistic Cinema!
This is Sadistic Cinema.
Welcome, everybody, to the darkest, most disturbing side of the internet. This is Sadistic Cinema. And as always, I am your host, David Manifesto Gibson. And here is my uber-talented buddy, my partner in crime, Stephen Nemeth. How are you doing tonight, Stephen?
I'm doing excellent, David. How are you?
Oh, I am doing great and feeling good because we have our first guest with us since resurrecting the show.
Yeah. We've recorded a few shows, but they've all been us just discussing content between ourselves. And I love getting back to our favorite format, which is this, round table or round computer discussion with other filmmakers. I love this.
And here with us tonight is it's kind of funny. This guy is an alum from the same high school I went to, in outskirts of Baltimore, Maryland.
What are y'all? What's your mascot?
Meade Mustang.
Go Mustangs! Go Mustangs!
This is the man behind 29 Needles, coming out soon with UNEARTHED Films, Philip Goergens. Scott, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you all?
Doing great. We really appreciate you being on with us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. I am very pleased to be here.
Now, Scott, 29 Needles should be out pretty soon. Can you tell the people out there a little bit about the concept behind the film?
So I was really kind of playing around with a variety of different ideas when I was creating the concept, and it really came down to an investigation of personality types and combining them to create this character. So I was really intrigued by serial killers and the mentality specifically behind what drives them to do what they do. And I combined that with the idea of people in a very safe setting that is for sexual gratification, using almost torturistic methods to derive some type of pleasure. And I just thought, where can there be like this weird combination of these two different concepts, and where could I go with that? So that's really how it evolved in the story, and I expanded from that, and that's where 29 Needles came from.
And 29 Needles, that would be a reference to Albert Fish, right?
It is a reference, and it is only that, because it isn't about Albert Fish, and it isn't really anything more than a subtle hint towards that. For those that have seen it, you'll know what that hint is.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, I've seen some discussion online. I just want you to make it clear that it's not an Albert Fish film, and it
is not.
It's coming out on a too extreme for mainstream line with Unearthed, and they did Torment, which was loosely based around John Wayne Gacy, and we'll say very loosely, but it's not in the same vein as that. You're just taking an inspiration, I guess, from some of the psychosexual issues that Albert Fish had.
Yes, there was that one of his issues. I mean, he was driven by religion in a sadistic way, and he felt like if God wanted to stop him, if he was doing something wrong, God would stop him. And he murdered and did horrible things to children and himself. But this character, it's almost more like he's maybe tormented by the same ghosts, or not physically, but that idea, that there might be a similarity there, like what drives a person.
And I'm trying to avoid spoilers here, for our audience, but there's a moment in the film that I think touches on Francis's, what's behind him or underneath the surface. Mm-hmm. And he shoots down the notion that this is a fetish, or that he's looking to fulfill fetishes.
Correct.
That it's something else. I don't know if anti-fetish or what that philosophy would be for it. Is there a name for that, or is there a way to verbalize what I'm touching on there?
If there is, I'm not exactly certain, but yes, it was. He even very specifically says it's not in regards to that. I mean, he uses those things in a very specific way, but it's almost like a form of self-destruction, and he, like an unstoppable force, is wanting to see where this will take him, out of this curiosity and this self-destruction,
And the character's name is Francis Bacon, which is another historical figure. What made you land on that name?
I named all the characters after surrealist artists, and I felt that he represented the character, or at least the artwork of the character. The artwork of the painter represented the character in unique ways, but every character was named after a surrealist artist. And I just, there wasn't any specific reason, but me being an artist myself, I just kind of thought that was an interesting way to do the naming.
Yeah, and I actually was looking at some of your artwork on your Arsenic Media page, mm-hmm. and I was really impressed. I really, living in Baltimore for so long, I just saw so much of Baltimore, the use of row homes. I saw the one painting with the use of Mount Vernon and mm-hmm. the Washington Monument, and it was just very striking. And it seems to me, and there's a part in the film, it seems like you have a lot of Cronenberg inside of you. Is that a fair assumption?
It is a fair assumption. I very much am influenced as a director and an artist in ways by Cronenberg. So yes, it's a fair assumption. I really, the body horror that he has created, but also just the way that the psychological development of the characters that he's created is very influential. So I love a lot of directors and their work, and I collect kind of different directors and see what they have to offer. And there's some that are certainly on my top list. But as a filmmaker, specifically Cronenberg is one of them that is I really tried to kind of draw inspiration from. But additionally, Ingmar Bergman, which is a bizarre combo, but I find both of them really I love the styles and the stories, and somehow I draw inspiration from both and do my own thing. Not that you can necessarily see either one, or that I could ever be either one as a director, but I certainly draw inspiration from their craft.
Now being a Baltimorean is John Waters, and I've always had so much respect for John Waters, just because of what he does and who he is, and he's such an icon in Baltimore. Has his movies been a big part of your fascination with film?
So I would say his movies were influential in a way that was specific to how I created the movie. So my husband and I had to travel around because he used to be in the Coast Guard. So I thought, how can I be a filmmaker if I'm not in New York or LA or whatever? And I'm like, John Waters is doing it. He's doing it in Baltimore, and he doesn't go to those places. He doesn't need to. So
No.
for people like that, it actually inspired me to say, well, you can do it outside the circuit, and that was something that I knew early on because we have been together, my husband and I, for a long time. So this was back when I was a teenager, I was 19, and when we met. So I was exposed to these movies, and I just thought, what can I do? And I started working on movies like when I was probably 16, making my own little things. But yeah, John Waters was influential in that way, not necessarily in what I created, but certainly in the fact that I felt like I could create outside the system, and the fans will find you.
One thing that has depressed me is a lot of my filmmaking contemporaries have moved to the West Coast, in LA specifically. And I love the fact that there was a network of us on the East that were doing our own things. Mm-hmm. And, there was so much of a personality of the regions we lived in. And, many of these, coastal and near coastal, in fact, a lot of colonial, cities on the East Coast. And there was something that kind of linked our work together in a different way, because of that. And I like seeing locations, even though Baltimore is very different from Charleston, but there is something about certain types of architecture because of where we were and where we are, and the ages of cities, and being on the East Coast, and that just carries, even there's things that are similar from Boston that remind me of Charleston, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot about Baltimore as well. So I really liked the look of the city itself because it reminds me of my home, and things I liked about East Coast cities from independent and exploitation film in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I do feel like the locations were certainly almost another character in the film, and I really loved being able to shoot in Baltimore, and I plan on my future ones to all be done here as well, and unless who knows, whatever happens, But that's my plan. I love Baltimore, and my artwork a lot of times is like a love letter to Baltimore, with my monsters and the architecture mixed in. But certainly I wanted to highlight the city and the juxtaposition of new and old together, and decay, and gleaming metal, and just different things, like how that it lives together in the same space in this. Almost like there's hidden parts that a lot of people don't even ever get to see. So
yeah, it's such an underrated city when it comes to art. There's so many great local artists in the town, but it's just so hard in that area to break nationally, it seems. And I was always surprised that there wasn't a bigger horror filmmaking community, because cities that have been through the depressing times Baltimore has usually breeds great art, and we just don't get to see. You have Pittsburgh not too far away, that's like a mecca, and Baltimore just doesn't. You have John Waters.
Mm-hmm.
Outside that, yourself. You have Jason Cook, who's now on the West Coast. He fled the city. It's just not much going on there film wise outside of The Wire and a few shows. Now I know that you did most of your casting through social media, and
Yes.
you have some extreme stuff going on. So how was that process? How long did it take to get the people in the right spots?
Oh my goodness, that took a while. That was a process, and it was all me. Most of it was all me, but specifically the pre-production was 100% me. I used different sites to look for and scour for the right types of people, specifically those that would be willing to be in the movie and to do a lot of the sexually explicit things that were required. for the characters, and then you had to weed those out to find people that could possibly read dialogue and read it so it was believable, and then find where they fit. So that process was long, and I mean, I interviewed everybody to kind of, first of all, I mean, a lot of people just say, okay, well, online, that sounds interesting, and I'm interested, but I wanted to meet them in a public space on purpose to see what their commitment was and true interest, or if it was just like this guilty little thing that they kind of were interested in doing but wouldn't ever show up for. Because if you're filming, obviously you need the people to show up. And it's you don't need to be playing around with that when the time that's, that you got people waiting on you. And so it took a while. I would say that process was at least a year, probably a year, to find all the people that needed to be involved. So I used, this is back in MySpace days. So I used MySpace to promote the movie and find all types of people. And I used Craigslist. Craigslist, I found a lot of people. Now, I don't think that they have this feature any longer, but it used to be like people looking for hookups, I guess. So I exploited that for my own, use and cause. And then I used
gone.
like,
it's gone now.
That?
I'll confirm that.
It's gone. Yeah. So yeah, but oh my gosh, the people that came across, it was insane. I mean, I would say probably 30% ended up showing up for interviews, and then of the 30% that showed up for interviews, I would say, maybe 15%. No, not even 15%. Like, 15% of that 30% probably ended up showing up when it was time to shoot. So it was small, but I kind of expected that, and I needed to go to those extremes to make sure that the people, when it was time to shoot, were going to be able to be there, and I wasn't just waiting on them. So. But I was able to find, I used some friends for speaking roles because of various reasons. But I had to combine some characters, and I didn't find somebody to fit one role. So I used a friend for that. And then I used other people that kind of were interested to do a lot of the scenes and didn't mind the nudity, but also were interested in the actual acting part of it. And so I was able to get out of them the performance that I needed. But Brooke, who is the lead, Brooke Berry, actually I found on MySpace, and we met, and initially, Brooke was going to be an extra, and quickly became, in the matter of the time that we spoke and our interview happened, to the next day, him being the lead. And I say him because Brooke was identifying as male during the entire production of the movie. Not until last year did Brooke transition to a woman. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and sadly, after the Nightmares Film Festival premiere, a couple weeks later, Brooke passed. So Brooke is no longer with us, which is horrible on many different levels. But the Nightmares Film Festival was the last time we saw each other. Yeah, but Brooke's performance is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that, and yeah, Brooke held the whole thing together. Very intense, very intense. Was that their nature during the filming? Like, is Brooke just that intense, or was that really acting?
It was both. It was really both. Brooke is intense, or Brooke was intense, and the acting certainly I feel like it's a natural. I mean, it's a natural performance, and Brooke really pulled through with it, and it was incredible. So yes, there was that intensity, but when the cameras turned off, Brooke became like this very silly. So it was not. It was like Brooke was able to turn it on, but there was this intensity, and it was just this kind of this very punk rock attitude. Just like, I'll do whatever, I don't care. And
Yeah, it had to have so much confidence because
yeah,
Brooke is
yeah.
naked like 50% of the film, if not more.
Yeah, I think 50% or more. Yeah. So yeah.
And not just the nudity, but I think there's other things going on that would make a actor vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's more so in this than in other roles. Speaking of Brooks' intensity, there's something that was very Michael Shannon-esque about him in a few.
Oh, that's a great
parts in there.
comparison. I can see that.
I was trying to figure it out. I was like, there's something familiar about Brooke.
People have
when
said
I'm
Michael
watching.
Shannon and Christopher Walken.
I can see
I
that.
could see that.
Yeah, like
Now-
there's it's not necessarily this this look that people would say Hollywood or whatever, but there's an intensity and there's a beauty to and a mesmerizing quality to Brooke. So yeah.
Regarding the other intense natures of the film and the explicit content in there, is there a specific statement about the sexuality portrayed in the film, or is that incidental to the escalating path of self-destruction story?
I think that the character was really designed to be one that it was so fluid, it didn't matter. It was the journey was taking the character where the journey took the character. It was like, and Francis was along for the ride. So who the Francis was with at the time, it didn't matter. So the sexuality element was just very fluid and just almost incidental. It wasn't like important in regards to the character.
Is the performance off of your written page completely? Are there more in the moment organic aspects of it? And if you could talk about the writing and your process when you answer that too.
Yes, certainly. So a lot of that was on the page, but a lot of the times there weren't pages. So in saying that, Brooke never knew truly the whole movie, and I kept the movie a secret. And Brooke, the first time Brooke saw the movie was at the world premiere at Nightmares Film Festival. So I actually shot a couple different endings and a couple different scenes in the middle to kind of keep it vague about what really the path was for the character. But overall, I mean, it's obvious. There's not so much to hide, but and Brooke wasn't involved for a lot of the shooting, so there were things that were just missing. So there was a lot of what was brought to the screen was on the page, but Brooke made those pages come alive, and specifically there was a lot of direction. Like if there wasn't anything to specifically write about for a scene, I would just say, this is what I want you to be thinking about, because some of the stuff, as you know from watching it, it's very nonverbal. So I want you to be thinking about this, and I want you to be doing this, and then this happens, and sometimes I would just not even be recording the audio, and I would be saying stuff off screen. So. Yeah.
Now, what was the hardest part of going from changing artistic mediums, going from being, painting, which is such a solo effort and you can get lost in yourself, into manning a production? What was the hardest part of that for you?
Well, I guess I feel like I'm both of those things. So I do one thing and I do another thing. I've always been interested in the visual arts, and painting and sculpture even, but the filmmaker side of me has always been there too, from an early age as well. And we would just play around when I was younger with, just instead of when I was in high school, I wanted a camcorder, and my parents bought me a camcorder instead of going on a vacation. I don't want the vacation. I want a camcorder. So free time, I would just go and hang out with friends, and we would make shorts, just like stupid horror shorts. And really, they were stupid. But we were having fun. It was just like, what are we going to do with our time? We're going to make a stupid horror movie. So sometimes they were 5 minutes, sometimes they were 20 minutes, whatever. But so the transition, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if I had to, I feel like it would be difficult to give up my vision to somebody else, because I am in control as the director of this very indie project that I have full control over still, or I'm in control of my artwork. I'm fine with either one. It gets a little weird when you have to give up a little bit of that control, whether it be a commissioned painting or putting your work in the hands of other producers or something like that. You're just like, oh, are they going to do justice? Are they going to be able to see my same vision? So that's kind of where I was thinking. I was like, I just want to be able to do it myself, because I don't know what it's going to turn out like if somebody else does it. So, yeah.
Was there any moments or parts in the film where you felt that you might be going too far, that you had to gear yourself up to do it, that you might have questioned yourself on, is this going to just be too much?
So to go and jump forward, when I was done the movie, I looked at it and I just kind of laughed, and I'm like, I've made an unwatchable movie. I'm like, what have I done here? And I was like, oh my God. But then I just, I got a lot of support from friends that were around me that helped with it. And obviously my husband as well is like, you've done something here. And, not a lot of people can say that. So I just put myself out there. I think that I just was like, no holds barred with this. So I just figured, as long as I kept it legal, I'm just going to do whatever I want, and just keep going with that. So I just kept everything above, the board in regards to legality, and just did what I wanted. And I just thought, I don't need a rating. I don't need to have to fit into some pigeonhole of whatever. And if there's an audience for it, hopefully the audience will find it. So, but there were times where I'm like, oh my God, what are people going to think of this? And then, I was just laughing through a lot of it, as well as the crew, because there was just a lot of hilarious moments that were just supposed to be horrific, and they were, but in the moment of doing them, they're just like, oh my God, it's just, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Yeah. So it's truly like outrageous and surreal. And if it wasn't for the tone, it would just be so comedic, because it was so comedic in filming a lot of this stuff. So, yeah.
Well, the tone, I think it came off as very bleak and nihilistic.
That was the intention.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be very, just like the most, grim and bleak, and like you said, nihilistic. Other people have described it the same way. It's just, it felt to feel very hopeless, and just almost like addiction. The story of addiction and just self-destruction. So,
was this 3 years of actual shooting?
It was more like a year and a half of actual shooting during so if we would look at the weather coming up, and it looked like it was going to be not raining and decent, then I like to shoot in overcast days, so the lighting is diffused. So I did a lot of that. So we would, as much as possible, we would find these days that we would have that type of look, which would lend to the feel of the film as well. But it also was really good for lighting. So it took about a year and a half because we were just all working on our free time when we could and when we were free to do it. So,
what were you doing professionally simultaneously with shooting the film?
okay, at that time, I think I was a barista at a restaurant, which was City Cafe, which was actually in the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was still there unless I had moved on. But
Was that where Brooke got slapped?
yes, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
The slap that would hurt around the restaurant. Yeah.
Now, you finished this movie in 2009. Did you just sit on it for a long time, or what was the process of getting it out there?
The process, because I was a one-person crew, meaning obviously I had PAs and people that were helping friends that were acting as PAs, and but the only person that was working a camera was me. About 99.9% of the time was me. There was one scene where we had to do. It was more of like the warehouse scenes. That was shot on one day, and I had one other person come in with a similar camera and used some of their footage. But so because I didn't have a sound person for most of it, I did use a sound person for one or two of the shots, but most of it was without a sound guy. So the audio was all recorded on the same through the camera, through the camera mic.
Was that the composer?
So the composer fixed all of the horrendous audio issues that were created from the way I recorded it. And he, which is Andrew Willis, worked on the project as well for, free over his free time. And his free time was between like paying jobs for documentaries and other indie films, and so it was, and there was a lot to work on, and a lot to create, and a lot to fix. So we just kind of were sat on it. It was like, when it's done, it's done. And so that's what the post-production was like, and why it took a while. And I just kind of released myself, and I said, I'm not going to work on another movie as a director until this one's done. I want this one to be out of the gate, or at least to where we are now, before I really start diving into my other movies. So
now you have Willie Richardson in the special effects. Is that a real name, or is that? I was thinking Willie Richardson might have been.
It sounds like no, that's his name.
I was thinking, was that the guy who created I don't want to give it away, but
it is. He is responsible for it. The one of the things that cost the most in the movie, which was the major creature effect, and that was the first time. So Willie.
Now, was it a joke that Willie Richardson was working on that?
That his name? Because, no, it just was maybe a fun, lucky coincidence.
Happy accident.
Happy accident, exactly. So Willie was one of those people that I met through Craigslist postings, and he's like, "Hey, do you have a makeup person? Do you have a person doing special effects? Special effects makeup, whatever." So, and I said no, and so he did the Virgin Mary doll in Pecker.
Okay.
And I mean, there's not much to that, but it's funny that he did that,
Yeah.
and he actually made these silicone masks that looked very realistic that you could buy for, and he would sell at like festivals and stuff. So he had latex and latex experience, and silicone really wasn't being used that much then and here. So a lot of what he did was through latex. but it was a lot of trial and error. And I found him by happenstance. So I was able to make the horrible visions that were written down come to life.
So were you
I do this.
talking to him about a different role in the production? And then he asked about makeup and effects, or?
No, he saw that I was doing this horror movie, and he was interested in being a part of it in an FX capacity.
Oh, okay. Now,
So, yeah.
some of the stuff in the film looked like some of the cuts looked like they were really cutting themselves. Was there some real stuff going on in there as well?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
all artificial. There's like a pocket knife that's used by the main character a few times, and that's just that knife is so dull. It would be difficult to cut warm butter with it. So I just laid a line of fake blood on the back side of it where you couldn't see it. And when you rub it across the skin, it left a mark. And then as soon as that happened, you cut correctly and, tricks of the camera, and then you add more and make it look great. And then you drip from different angles. And so, yeah, so it was all the cutting was all fake. And I have to say that Brooke was very much on board with making it real at some of the stuff, and I was not interested in that aspect. I didn't want I didn't want a hospital visit or anything like that, So
now,
What
what
did
is
you-
I was just going to ask what has the response been from like your straight friends that you've showed this film to? What has been their reactions?
Well, they've had really positive reactions, which makes me feel great, because although that there is an element that's very much like, gay to it, because the main character kind of glides through men and women in a very just fluid manner. I did want it to be accessible to an all audience, despite their sexuality, because it's already pigeonholed in this extreme way. And I just thought I wanted it to at least feel like it could be relatable or appreciated by an audience of any sexuality. So I was really pleasantly surprised that specifically Andrew, when he was scoring the film and he was working on the audio. Initially, he was like, when he heard about the concept and stuff, he's like, maybe I won't use my name on it and I'll just do it. And I think that was early, maybe as a joke, but he's like, we've made something really good here, and so that changed, and so there was and a lot of the people that actually really have gotten into the movie that have seen it have been straight. So I love that. I really love that. So
I think as as a younger hetero man, if you're younger, it might be harder to watch. Just thinking of myself, if I was 20, this would be a lot harder for me to sit through. But now that I'm 40, it's like, this doesn't bother me at all.
There's something like you were talking about, the way Brooke is fluid, the way he navigates these situations, or I'll say Francis, for the character. There's something that reminded me about Elias Koteas in Cronenberg's Crash, about his detachment and the way he navigated or interacted with it, and something steely and cold about him, which kind of plays into that Michael Shannon-esque thing I was talking about, that I got out of him, or that hint of this familiarity. And I think Elias Koteas is the other part of that too, not in look, but the approach, maybe.
Yes.
What did you shoot this on?
I had Andrew, who did the score, he and I used to work together in Boston for a company that rented film equipment and video equipment out to whoever needed it, whether it be TV crews or independent productions or Avid equipment or whatever. Anyway, we met each other there, and so when I left, I decided to buy a camera, and I shot it. I bought the Sony DSR 500, which a lot of it's kind of a big camera that you see the news crews use a lot. That's like shoulder holding, big ass camera. So I got that, and I wanted to buy something because I knew that the cost of rental can, especially if I was going to be shooting over a long period of time, would really rack up my budget. So I just figured I'd buy it outright, and then just shoot whatever as long as I could on that thing. So that's what I shot it on, and I plan on utilizing it in some way for the next one as well. So we'll see how long it takes, how far it takes me. But I actually I dumbed down the because I learned a trick while I was working in there to dumb down the footage a little bit by using a different frame aspect rate, a different frame rate. So to make it feel a little film-like, a trick was to shoot it as PAL and change the frame rate so it wouldn't be so newsy and crisp and feel like a soap opera. So that's what I did to create a little bit of a different look in regards to that.
Now, did you have any, like when you were editing, did you experience any interpolation, like frame drops or anything like that going between PAL and your exhibited frames?
So that happened later after the whole thing was done and completed, and when we had to convert it to a format that was going to be accessible by Blu-ray, there was that issue. And I had another friend that I met through the same company help me, who's now an editor that works around the DC area. His name's Luke, and he helped me make that work. And it's outside my range of abilities, but he was able to do some tricks so we didn't lose anything, and we were able to translate it to a different frame rate.
So was that like a 30 frame, like in the
way I shot it, or what it ended up as?
No, when you shot it.
No, well, I'd have to look back at the numbers, but I forget. Yeah, it was it was off a bit though, so it made it.
It's like
it made
29, 30, or 59, something like that, I guess, with PAL.
Yeah, I think it was 29, but I might be wrong. Yeah.
This is the nerdy side of
yeah. I could certainly get you that, but I don't have it in front of me. So I know that we worked through a couple different things, and he helped me through all that. So, yeah.
Now, coming from two different realms or multiple realms of art, when you watch your completed film or you look at a completed painting, is it a different sense of fulfillment for you, or is it kind of the same?
In regards to a painting or the film?
Yeah, how do your artistic fulfillment is it do you feel about the same, like if you created a film that you really like or a painting that you really like, or is it a different feeling altogether?
No, I feel like it is similar. Obviously, the scope of the project was much different, so the investment is different. So when the payoff is there, you have a similar appreciation for it. So if it came to be where I was more disappointed in the end product, I think that the disappointment might have been heightened more because of the investment. But I don't think that there was generally too much different in an equally appreciated end product from one to the other. I mean, that's a good question. I just obviously it has to do with the invested time, and whether you are happy with the end product. Now, what I created at the end, I'm happy with it. It isn't exactly what I wrote, but I'm happy with what it became because of. I mean, there were changes. I combined characters. I dropped effects. I ended up having to take some of the makeup effects and going with them and doing them myself because it took so long to shoot the movie that the people invested in it had to kind of move on to other stuff. So it was this and that. So I see those in it, but it certainly doesn't, because I'm happy with what it still became. I'm not. My opinion of it hasn't changed. It's just that when I look at the what I wrote, it's like, oh well, the character. This was so the main character Francis was really, there was supposed to be more like body horror involved in that, and there was supposed to be this the beginnings of a transformation physically. Okay. That never happened. There was one beginning first scene that was shot for that, and I had to scrap it because it was going to take a lot longer, and there was going to be a lot more effects needed to do this, and I just was like, I can't do it because I don't have the crew to do this. Yeah. So just basically the end result. Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm happy with it, and the feeling of that is similar from a painting to a movie, but it's because I was happy with the end result that I could say that.
Now the eyeball gag. What was the technique behind that?
Eyeball. Oh my goodness. Okay. So that was inspired the day of.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. So
you're talking about the masked guy?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought, I want to put something in the screen that somebody hasn't seen before.
Yeah, you did it.
I good. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. And we just thought, well, and we were brainstorming there. So why is this going to happen? And why is this? So it was kind of spontaneous, and it was created the day of. So it's like, the idea was that we need to get him to do something outrageous and disgusting, and it's not what I initially was thinking it was going to be. So what can we do? And I came up with that, and it was a really easy effect, but really it made you cringe, even though you didn't exactly see it all.
I was thinking Scott showing me a new is he showing me a new fetish I've never heard of before?
The only thing that could have made that more uncomfortable would have been a sound effect like the end of a cup with a straw in it.
That might have made it funny, actually.
Yeah, it may have, but
yeah.
I was just like, like when he did that, I was like, oh fuck, yeah, okay, this guy's finding new stuff.
That was the idea, and I really kind of wanted to push it where it's like, okay, this is not a BDSM club. It's not that. It is like, and I really kind of wanted to emphasize that in different ways, that these aren't people with just like wanting to act out fetishes. It is more of like no holds barred fantasy kind of place. So.
Well, I saw it, and I don't know if this is your intention. I almost saw it like almost Dante's Inferno. Like, he's kind of stuck in the hell of his own existence, and it seemed. I was talking to somebody. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the film Irreversible.
Yes.
And I was like, this makes Club Rectum seem like Disney World.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That was somebody that interviewed me as well in regards to this film. So yeah, the Club Rectum is Disney World compared to this. So yeah, I mean that was the idea, to kind of. And honestly, I hadn't seen Irreversible when I made this. I don't know what year that came out, but I do know that Brooke.
I'm not saying they look similar. It's just
no. But that idea,
it's a very hardcore, hellish type club.
Yeah, and really the levels of hell were with Dante's Inferno were very much thought of when I created the levels in the club.
Okay.
So that was
that came across. That came across,
and it was more the opposite, where the more risky stuff was as you went higher. That was the stuff that you really had to kind of deal with and plan. So yeah, it was certainly thought of when I was doing that. Yeah. So I'm glad you caught that.
Now, are you currently working on anything now?
I am. I'm so when Brooke transitioned, I just decided to rewrite the script that I initially wanted to shoot as my first feature, but I needed more money to do it. So I kind of was like, oh, well, I'm going to make this other movie that I can make on a little bit lower budget and easier, which is 29 Needles. So I was hoping that, it would raise some money to do this next film. So when Brooke transitioned to a woman, I rewrote the script to fit Brooke better. And now that Brooke is no longer with us, I'm rewriting it again, and I'm working through that. And it's a totally different feel. The 29 Needles set is very much Baltimore and around Baltimore, and it feels, even though you're in these confined environments at times, these clubs and bars and businesses, it still feels like open. And this, the next one is, without talking too much about it, is it's a very controlled group of people, and it's like 8 people, and it's like at a retreat at a house and by itself, and there's really no neighbors. So it's a different type of environment and very controlled, but there will still be this similar feel. People will be able to say, yeah, I see that this is the same director. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm working on that script, and I won't be able to use really any amateurs. I need people that can really pull across some great dialogue with their horrific acts of depravity that are on the screen. So
now, do you see yourself staying more with the horror genre? Is there other genres you'd like to touch on?
No, I just want to do horror.
I love that answer.
Yeah, just horror is fine. I mean, I love like all of the types of movies that are out there. And as a matter of fact, right before this interview, I was watching a great movie by Aki Kaurismäki, which is La Havre. I'm not very good with pronunciations. I think it's French. So, I mean, it's just this very simple, just like this timeless piece about this shoe shiner and this refugee. And it's a great, just simple film. And I love comedies. I love all that, whatever. But as a director, it's horror all the way. And I might go within like different veins of it. But I definitely feel like that's what I want to create.
Well, even 29 Needles, it will be, it's a hard film just to throw in a particular genre, because you are in a couple of different worlds there. So, and I'm a fan. I love things that blend the lines. So yeah, it's not just total horror, which even though it is a horror film, but you also have, just other elements, thriller elements and just dark sexual elements as well. So yeah, I like that you blurred the lines there and kept it a little different.
And that was my intention. It's like, well, what is this horror? And when I thought about it, I was like, well, my initial creation was, yes, these are horrific things that are happening, and horrific things are happening to people. And so I would say, if you asked me, and people have asked me, that yes, it is horror, but it isn't maybe the traditional one that people might think of. And it doesn't have to just fit neatly in that category, which I didn't need that to happen either. And I'm not necessarily, when I'm creating any other film, it doesn't have to neatly fit into that as well. But it's certainly going to be understood in that genre. So
Steven and I think me and him agree, because we have a really broad idea of what is horror, and to me, and I think Steven will concur, it's more about the feeling that the film gives you as opposed to just the imagery on the screen.
Right.
Yeah, I think the imagery is so much of a skin, and the way people feel that maybe Army of Darkness is horror, or that post Evil Dead 2 world of splatter comedy, which I enjoy, and I love the craft of those films too, but really like Cronenberg stuff, and when he moved in a more drama direction, like Dead Ringers and Crash and History of Violence, like the
even if History of Violence, if you look at the pacing, History. Sorry to cut you off, Steve. I would say History of Violence. If you look at the pacing, that's paced like a horror film.
And I think 29 Needles, and I think it ties together more, in, like when you look at it as a whole, maybe there's more horror elements visually than some individual moments and scenes and interactions, but every moment in there has that dark, the tone that I associate with, dread, horror,
like you aren't going to go into the movie, for all the people that are listening that haven't seen it, you're not going to go in and you're not going to be scared from the movie, but you're going to be affected by it. And you're going to hopefully think about it afterwards in different ways. And that was my intention. And really, like, the idea was that dread, that nihilistic viewpoint, that is where really the horror comes from. And it's a character study of this person that is just slowly falling and doesn't care where they go. And as a matter of fact, is curious of where that will lead them. So I feel like that in essence is horrific. And
Now, how did you get attached with Unearthed and Stephen Biro? How did that come about?
Well, that happened because of Nightmares Film Festival, and Tostovan is the director of the festival. Jason said, that he was going to certainly, he felt like it was a right fit for Unearthed, and he was going to contact Stephen and let him know. And then I was interviewed by Rebecca for, I think it's pophorror.com. She was interviewing me there at Nightmares Film Festival, and she mentioned Unearthed as well, and Stephen. She said, if anything, I certainly feel like it's right for Unearthed. And so she emailed Stephen as well, because she knew Stephen enough. And because of that, I decided, well, I will email Stephen and just say, hey, but they had already said, hey, Scott's going to be giving you an email here soon. You should definitely look at it. So I feel like it would, had it not been for Nightmares and them, that that path probably would have been more difficult to find if not found at all. So
Awesome. Now, the disc you do have a making of, which I'm
yes,
guessing will be part of the features on the Blu-ray.
yes.
Any other things that you can divulge? Any other type of features, commentary, anything of that nature that might show up?
Well, there is going to be a director's commentary. Unfortunately, Brooke was going to be involved in that with me, and Brooke, and as well, Brooke was not in the making of, but we were talking about scheduling a date to do both of those. But Brooke passed before that happened. So I'm the only one on the director's commentary, and there is that. So it's been a while since I recorded that, but I do feel like there's some good information on there. And then there's some behind the scenes photos and making of photos, and there's some videos of behind the scenes and maybe outtakes of just where the stuff that didn't make it in, or the camera
a blooper reel.
Well, maybe a little bit of a blooper reel, like yeah. Well, for instance, there's a quote unquote dream sequence that is used in the film where fingers are involved, lots of fingers, fingers.
Yeah. I brought that up with Steven. I think the way I worded it to him, because before he saw the film, he found very, very funny.
Yeah. So that scene, we probably have an hour and a half, an hour worth of footage for that scene, and it occupies like a couple minutes on the screen, but it's effective. But that scene, there's a lot of extra stuff in there, and so I included a few extra minutes of that on there, but I just couldn't include all of it because it gets so comedic when we were filming that it was breaking the tone, and it just would have been just ridiculous. But I used some of it and used it as the dream sequence. But that was Barbie's satin, and I was lucky enough to be able to use Barbie in that. And Barbie played the character of Dolly, named after Salvador Dali.
Salvador Dali. Yeah.
So we thought that if you, it didn't even say it, but we put it in the credits as Dolly, and it sounds a little bit like Dolly, like a doll. So we thought that was funny. But yeah, so there's some of that. There's the making of, like I said, the commentary, some photos, and there may be, but I don't know, some other stuff like soundtrack and music. But well, I don't know if that's going to be or not. So we'll see.
So there's not going to be like 50 hours of extras or anything.
It's not like that. It's all going to be on one disc. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I really did enjoy the film, and it was very original. I haven't seen anything. The few things I've said that I can see some influence, and that wasn't mean to saying that it's derivative at all. I just, I watch enough film, and I can see a lot of times who inspirations can be. But I think you did a really good job, and at $2,500 to make a film of this caliber, it's very commendable.
Thank you. I wanted all the money to be on the screen, so, as they say, because that really went into the makeup, the effects, the special effects.
How much did the monster cost? I made a prediction with Steven on it. I know it's probably a little high what I said, but
well, I mean, it was probably like $2,000.
Really, I was close. I said 1,500.
Yeah, it was probably like. I mean, the other 500 was for some of the other stuff, and then some of the props never ended up being made. So, but maybe the materials bought. So it might have been like 1,800. It might have been, okay. But it was. I mean, it was extensive, and you can see from the bonus material and the making of what really went into that it turned out pretty good. Even though, I mean, it's a big piece of lifeless rubber. I wanted to use it enough in there that it would be like jarring, but not so much where you were laughing at it, because really I wanted to play with daylight a bit, because you see these horrific things in the broad daylight at times. And I thought that was an interesting way to kind of just do just something different, that it wasn't all hidden in shadow. It was just exposed and raw, like the character. So I just thought that was an interesting way to do it. But yeah, I had to be really careful with that, because the flaws of, our budget were visible in the creation of that. And so you kind of had to use it sparingly so it didn't create a chuckle in anybody,
No, yeah, I think you did a good job. It was I didn't see too many of the flaws. I didn't see any of the flaws in it, so I think you did the right thing, and had the right lighting and everything where it looked realistic.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Stephen?
I agree. I think one thing we talk about when David and I discuss the films is production value, and for the resources available, how did that affect what we see on screen, and is there a synergy to the what looks like what the production value could have been? Because you can throw money at problems and situations and make things happen or remove obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
But in the budgetary world that you're talking about, it's much more fragile to
Yes.
to pull these things off. So we are impressed by that type of thing. That's the world that I'm working into. I've had the blessings of being on a few productions that had more money in it, but even in more money and other things come more problems and more obstacles, and a lot of that is even used up for the minimal things you need to get some visual stuff happening.
Right.
No, I think you did great. I can't wait to see the response from the people that get this on disc.
Yeah, I'm interested and excited. I'm very blessed to have such positive responses so far. That makes me happy. I initially was thinking, when I was creating this and working on a story, I said, okay, the found footage has been done, and I don't want to do that. And that's a really great way to hide budgetary issues.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to hide my budget in other ways. And that was, and I thought that the way that I did a lot of the just tripod camera work would help with that, because I didn't have a steady cam. And so I did a lot of these very voyeuristic, just kind of like still shots that I thought would help with that, and really lend a tone of just you're stepping into, and you feel like you're like watching something you're not supposed to be there, and to make that work artistically, and because I did have at least the eye of an artist in composition, so I knew what I was trying to create, and I think that I was lucky in that, and to be able to have that, to be able to create something that felt a little bit more above the bar. Hopefully, at least that I was trying to do that.
Well, there's something, and you were talking about the influences in painting. There's something that was kind of Goya about, the productions and some of the imagery that was going on too. I thought it was great, and especially those daytime moments of strangeness that
Yeah.
Francis' character experiences. Because he's going around this underground world at night. Like you have to know someone to be on the end to have access to these places he's going, and it's, definitely in the shadows. And then he has his other elements of disruption of his experience, in his home in
Right.
broad daylight, and something that seems so safe and suburban. So that was really cool, and especially the value you got out of the main creature effect too.
Good.
Yeah, a lot of props to you for that.
Thank you, and I appreciate you also keeping that a little bit, a secret and not just revealing that, because I feel like just what I have done with that was just it's just a nice inclusion into the movie, and it lends an element that heightens it a bit. So.
Yeah. So yeah, folks, this is definitely one to check out. Unearthed puts out some very subversive films, and I think this fits really good into the too extreme category, which I kind of make fun of the too extreme thing because most of Unearthed stuff's pretty damn extreme anyway. But yeah, look out for that. And Scott, excuse me. Yeah, Scott, how can people get in touch with you, or anything else that you'd like to plug, your Instagram, Facebook, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, and I am on Twitter a little bit, and I'm trying to it's hard to kind of juggle all these things. So Twitter ends up being a little bit lacking, unfortunately, but when there is new news, I try to put it up there. So Arsenic Media is generally how you can find me. That's my website, arsenicmedia.com, and you can see my art there, and there's links to my other Facebook stuff and Instagram stuff, and yeah.
And any art shows coming up anytime soon?
I own an art gallery in Baltimore, and I show my work once a year, generally around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and it's usually consisting of my Baltimore monsters. We'll see what this year holds if we're still going virtual openings, but generally the live ones have been a good turnout, and we show 6 artists a year, not necessarily horror at all, but my work plays in that realm, and I show other artists that are regional. So, and I, my work is available through the website, and you can see it on Instagram as well.
Awesome. And Stephen, anything else that you want to touch on before we go?
No, we've covered my list, man.
Great.
I mean, there's plenty of stuff I want to talk to Scott about, but we don't want to reveal more than
off camera.
People need for their first viewings.
Off recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of just to be honest, a lot of the interviews we have, the movies are already out, so it's a little easier, and we don't feel as bad spoiling things. But yeah, we don't want to spoil this. We want the audience to get the full experience their first time out. So feel the adventure. But well, Scott, I really appreciate you coming on with us this evening. Again, folks, check out the film. Keep a lookout. Feel free, Scott, to post anything in the Extreme Cinema group. Any updates, and check out the Unearthed group as well, people. Like I said, our group is Extreme Cinema. We also have Sadistic Cinema. You can email us at sadisticcinema.com, and also check out our Facebook fan page. And anything I missed, Stephen?
Gmail. It's sadisticcinema@gmail.com.
At gmail.com, yeah.
Yeah, our email isn't attached through the website, but there is a sadisticcinema.com, which we haven't. Well, no one knows because this isn't live.
Yeah.
We'll have that set up to launch by the time. So maybe check it out if you do hear me saying that. Don't listen to me. For everything.
and we have some giveaways coming out as well soon, so
Yes.
keep a lookout for that.
Awesome giveaways of subversive film.
Yeah, we got some Vinegar Syndrome titles in there and a couple other goodies as well, right?
Raro video and a collection, a whole collection of a series of 3 films from a director. And we're figuring out how we're going to go about the giveaway, but we'll be talking about that soon.
Yeah, some awesome films. So yeah, keep a lookout for that. But thanks again, Scott, for coming on.
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure.
Yeah.
And Steven, as always, great speaking with you, my friend.
Oh, it was wonderful, and thank you, Scott, for being our first guest in the resurrection of Sadistic Cinema.
I'm happy to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks, for listening. Again, this is David Gibson and Stephen Nemeth, and this is Sadistic Cinema, where we celebrate the darker side of film. Good night.